So here we have the specialization and the skills for the Huntress build that we're running right now. For specialization, we have chosen Sharpshooter of the Wild because it has a support skill called Tumble. Tumble allows you to get around the map very quickly, which is great. So for the first mastery, we have Assassin's Momentum, which is 40% movement speed during Assassin's Haste. Assassin's Haste is a buff you get, a short buff you get after you land when you cast Tumble. So it just allows you to jump and have movement speed a lot of the time during the expedition, which is amazing. The second round you have two options. You can either choose Know Your Enemy for 50% projectile damage reduction, which is a great survivability in Wrath 10. I found it useful anyways. If you don't really need the survivability, you can go for Good Reception, which is a 30% chance to reset its cooldown when you land. It just allows you to have a lot more movement speed and jump around a lot more, right? On the third row, we only have one option, Self-Control, which gives 10% attack speed when you're not tormented or delighted. We're never really tormented because we don't use the second skill. We only use the primary skill and our space support skill. So it just means that we're either delighted or hovering right under. So what I found so far is that you pretty much have this on 50% of the time. And the other skills in this row don't really synergize with the build. For the fourth row, we have Booby Trap, which drops a trap whenever you cast Tumble. The trap gives knockback and stuns the enemies, so it's just a nice addition. On the fifth row, you have two options. You can either choose Agility of the Wild, which is 15% attack speed, or you can choose Precision of the Wild, which is 10% critical strike chance. Critical strike chance is really nice, but I don't really feel like at this stage of the build that I need more critical strike chance, because I have Lucky on the bow that I'm using, so I already have a decent amount of crit chance, so I feel like I crit all the time. And that's the reason why I've chosen 15% attack speed. It just allows me to cast a lot more arrows. On the sixth row, you have Rapid Shot, which is 40% projectile speed. It just allows the arrows to rebound a lot more and damage a lot more. And it also synergizes well with mastery on the arrow shot that I'll show you later. On the seventh row, you have Baba Yaga, which is 25% damage to elites. In the early stages of this build, the main problem is that you don't really have a lot of single target damage. At some point, your damage will just scale very well, and that just means that you don't really need a single target skill. So just throwing arrow shot is just fine in that game. On the last row, we have Superior Endless Quiver, which gives 5+ additional projectiles to arrow shot, and 300% mana cost increase. So before you pick this one, make sure that you have some kind of mana leech on your bracer, because you're gonna need it. And at least one item with mana regen, because it's gonna cost a lot to cast arrow shot. As for right now, mine cost 960. I'm usually using Furious and Fast, which takes it down to 464 mana per cast, but that just means that pretty much every second you're using your entire mana pool, so you need some kind of mana leech to keep it up. For the first row of arrow shot, which is our primary skill, we have a Bouncing Arrow, which is 50% rebound chance. And then for the second row, we have Obsidian Arrowhead, which is 100% pierce chance. And then for the third row, we have Snapback, which is a multiplier whenever your arrows rebound. And when they rebound without hitting an enemy, it's just way more multiplier. So this is just a great damage addition. For the fourth row, we have Furious and Fast, Arrow shots deal 110% increased damage. Increased damage is equal to your projectile speed. So that synergizes really well with this rabbit shot mastery, which gives 40% projectile speed. If you have under 50% projectile speed, it might be worth it to take so many arrows instead. But as soon as you get above 50% projectile speed, it's worth more to have furious and fast. It just scales better. For the last row, I have a fork chance. Or whenever my arrows fork, I have a 10% chance to fork again. This doesn't really synergize that well with the build right away, but as soon as you get a specific legendary with 100% fork chance, it's really good. So yeah, that's the specialization and skills for this build. We don't have a secondary skill. We don't really need it. We are always using arrow shot for everything. Single target, AoE, it doesn't matter. Only arrow shot. You can play around with having a secondary skill for single target damage, but at this stage of the game in early access, we don't really need it because it's only Wrath 10. So right now we're just doing plenty damage to kill everything. But as soon as they start releasing more content or more difficulty, it might be a good idea to find a single target skill. At that stage, I might update this guide to find something that makes more sense. But as of right now, you only need one skill, and that's arrow shot. And then of course your support skill, so 2 skills. Let's have a look at items, legendary items, bows, and finally the stats that we currently have for the build. First off, I just want to say that we haven't really looked on any Wikipedia pages, Discord channels, or other content creator builds or anything. So there might be other legendaries out there available that I just haven't found yet, which have better synergy with the build. But this is what we have found so far. I'm pretty much just winging it with my Twitch chat. Let's have a look on the legendaries first. Young Phoenix Feather is a cheat death helmet, which we have a lot of survivability on this character, but there is still 2 enemies on Wrath 10 that I just can't survive a hit from. That is the Goblin Mage and the General with the big sword. And this item just allows me to screw up once every 3 minutes so we don't have to restart the expedition. So that is pretty cool. We have Ethereal Cloning Pads. Gives additional projectiles. That's a lot of increased damage. And then we have the masterpiece of this build, Archery Gloves of the Adaptable Steel. This legendary is completely bonkers. After a rebound, arrow shot has between 75 and 100% fork chance on the next enemy hit. And since we already have 100% rebound chance and 100% pierce chance, then if you can get 100% fork chance as well. I've tested this a little bit, and if I remove all the additional projectiles from items and the skill, then go into a small of just any room really with a lot of enemies, and you fire one arrow. That arrow will then fork out and create like 50 arrows, and they keep rebounding around and piercing enemies. So one arrow will pretty much be able to clear the entire room. And if you add that up with like 8 more arrows, it just gets completely bonkers, as you saw in the gameplay video in the start of the video. So this item is so damn good for the game. No, not for the game, for the build. So I would definitely recommend that one. We also have an honorable mention over here, the belt. Traps slowly pull enemies within 5 yards radius. Since we have traps on tumble, it just adds another layer of crowd control on the mobs, which lets you survive. So I haven't tested it yet, but it just feels like a nice thing to have. As for stats on the items, the most important stat for this build is getting the last 50% rebound chance, which you can get on helmet, rings, belt, and cloak. And I think the items need to be above level 25. I think it's 25 or 27 where rebound unlocks on the items, and you can roll for it. In the beginning, you might have to roll for rebound chance on like at least 4 items, so cloak, belt, and the 2 rings, for example. Once you get reinforcement levels up, you can manage with only 2 items with rebound chance. I have it on the ring with 27%, and then I have it on the cloak with 25%. That gives above 50% from items, which gives us 100% rebound chance with 50% from the mastery on the skill. Another really important stat is crit chance and crit damage. That is super important. And then you have attack speed, which allows you to cast a lot more arrow shots a second. Max life and armor increase is also really good. But what I've found is that all damage reduction and elite damage reduction is super important for surviving at least 1 hit on Wrath 10 at the moment. And then max HP, of course. Another super important stat to have is mana leech on bracers, and then life leech on gloves. You can also have life leech on other items, and mana leech on other items, I believe. But this is where you can normally just roll for it really quickly. The reason why mana leech is so damn important is that due to our skill costing 464 mana, and if you don't have the projectile speed to choose this one, then you most likely choose this one, so many arrows. And if you have that one, each arrow costs 960 mana a pop. So, and since you only have about 2k mana, then after shooting 2 arrow shots, you're out of mana. But if you have mana leech and damage enemies, then you pretty much have endless mana. And then you might want mana regen. I have mana regen on 1 item, and the reason for that is that if you keep firing after you kill all enemies and you go dry on mana, then it's really nice to have some extra mana regen to quickly get up so you can fire 1 more shot when you get to the next enemies, so you can start mana leeching again. So having mana regen on at least 1 item, mana leech, and then life leech is super important. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the item stats, I think. As you can see over here on when we look on our defenses, we have 17% on all damage reduction. Elite damage reduction is at 77.5. And then we have melee damage reduction at 18%, projectile damage reduction at 79%, and then area damage reduction at 12%. It really lets you survive pretty much anything. You also have a good amount of crit chance and crit damage, and a lot of attack speed. And a lot of raw damage, which comes from this bow, the big furry primordial bow. First off, you probably won't have that. So if you have the big furry bow, I would definitely choose that one, since it also has a lucky. It gets a lot of raw damage, but it also has an ability called lucky. Not an ability, a feature, I think. And lucky lets you get double rolls on your crit chance. So every time you hit an enemy and, for example, have 38% crit chance, then it rolls twice and it takes the best roll, and if it's a crit, you get it. So it just allows you to crit a lot more often than you usually would. If you do not have the big furry bow, you can choose, where is it? The most powerful bow. It also has a lot of raw damage, so that makes the arrow shot do a lot of damage. I have also heard that some people are using Nimble Warrior. I haven't tested it myself yet. And then the mana bender, because the arrow shot costs so much mana that this bow might be really good. But I heard it got nerfed recently, but just haven't tested it. As for the big furry bow, once you get 42k victims on it, it should give you the primordial version, which is a lot better. And it gives you a lot of raw damage. Let's have a look at the final stats of the items. I almost forgot about that. But you have mastery stats, and then you have Reaper stats and attribute stats that you can add to items at the bottom, as you can see. Reaper stats is plus levels to your weapon. So the big furry bow that I'm using is an Astorius bow, and when you click in on the bow, you can see primordial bow by Astorius, which means that if you add Astorius Reaper stats to all of your items, then you get extra levels on your bow, which just means more damage. Another thing is mastery. You can get additional mastery points for all your skills. I have +2 to arrows on all my items. It gives a lot of damage. And then finally, I have +3 on toughness on all my items. And that is mainly just due to survivability and me testing stuff. I might switch that out with more damage at some point, maybe. I'm not 100% sure, but I might do. And I think that's it for items. And for the last part, we have the Ancestral Legacy Tree. Right now, the first thing you want to pick is the Burning Shadow. It gives 50% raw damage, which has a nice synergy with the Furry Bow. And then we have 100% crit strike damage for 12 seconds. Because we have so much attack speed on our gear, the cooldown on Burning Shadows is only 6.7 seconds. So you can really have this up for all the big packs and elites in the run. So that is really nice. Another one is Vengeful Hero. It gives 10% raw damage, armor penetration, and armor. You don't really need more damage right now, but if you feel like you have plenty damage, go down and take this one instead, the Slormancer. It gives Gold Find, Storm Find, and Magic Find. You don't really need all the damage anyways. So, but if you feel like you need more damage, go for this one, Vengeful Hero. If not, this one. If you have any questions about the build in the video, drop a comment or catch me live on twitch.tv/ubinax. Subscribe and comment for the YouTube algorithm.